of dying for their sins, as Yeshua did, but that he is the suffering Messiah, that he is the one who will fight and die and be killed, and then the Messiah, son of David, will ask for him to be raised from the dead, and he will be raised, and then the Messiah, son of David, will usher in the kingdom of God. There was even rabbinic discussion over 1,000 years ago saying that if the Jewish people are worthy, then just the Messiah, son of David, will come. But if not, first the Messiah, son of Joseph, and then the Messiah, son of David. And there's a discussion in the Talmud that says that this refers to the Messiah, son of Joseph, who's going to be killed in this final battle. Interestingly. There's even rabbinic interpretation about 1,300 years old that takes Psalm 22 and puts it on the mouth of Messiah, son of Joseph, who is suffering agony and pain in solidarity with Israel as he is waiting in heaven to be revealed. Again, it's a homiletical interpretation, but it quotes Psalm 22. So it's interesting to me, despite the impact and force of Christianity, despite the fact that the rabbinic community rejected Christian teaching through the centuries, and among the first believers, Jewish believers, separated from Jews who did not believe in Yeshua. There was a battle over the faith in the first decades. Despite that, rabbinic interpretation still found the need to have a suffering Messiah. You would have thought that they would have nothing to do with it. You would have thought that no way, no how is Psalm 22 going to be quoted in a messianic context, is Zechariah 12:10 going to be quoted in a messianic context, because the Christians use those verses. And yet, interestingly, for whatever reason, there's all kinds of explanation as to the origin of the concept of the Messiah, son of Joseph. But it's interesting that the Jewish traditions actually developed their own concept of a suffering Messiah. Not in the same way that Yeshua suffered, but still suffering pain, agony, and grief for and with his people, and ultimately killed and even raised from the dead. It's interesting. Now, interpreting this with reference to Yeshua makes perfect sense. They'll look on me, the one they've pierced. So there's the identification of Yeshua with the Lord himself. With the slightest addition of one Hebrew letter, it could just read, they will look to him, the one they've pierced, and they will mourn for him. But if Messiah is closely associated with the Lord here, they will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they'll mourn for him. No reason to say that they can't be messianic. No reason to say that it doesn't refer to the Messiah. And it's certainly better than any of the rabbinic interpretations. Some of the Jewish translations translate that they'll look to the Lord because of all the people that have been slain in this battle, but that is contrary to the plain grammatical meaning of the Hebrew. Again, for details, see volume 3. Okay, last verse. Zechariah 13. It's not quoted in the New Testament, this particular part. Verse 7 is, awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man who's close to me. Strike the shepherd, the sheep will be scattered. That's quoted in the New Testament. But the verses before that are not quoted. But look at this. Verse 6, if someone asks him, what are these wounds on your body? He will answer, the wounds I was given at the house of my friends. Oh, wow, this is a messianic prophecy. You'll hear some messianic prophecy teachers, Christian or Messianic Jewish teachers, refer to this, oh, yeah, this is a Messianic prophecy. What are these wounds? Because the Hebrew is bein yadayim. What are these wounds? Does it mean in your hands? What are these wounds in your hand? Wow, this is a prophecy of Jesus being crucified. Well, when you read the context, you see it's a word about false prophets. It's clearly absolutely not a prophecy about Jesus. Hang on. Maybe the rabbis are right, and it is a prophecy about him because he was a false prophet. So the one real prophecy about him in the Bible is the one identifying him as a false prophet. And how do you know it's him? Well, who else is going to draw attention to their wounds in their hands? And that's why Christian translations like the NIV say, what are these wounds on your body? So that you won't realize this is a prophecy of Jesus, calling him a false prophet. That's the way some of anti-missionaries have argued. It is a prophecy of Jesus. It is a prophecy of the crucifixion. And it's identifying him as a false prophet. Okay. So let's read it and see. Is this a prophecy of Yeshua as a false prophet? Verse 2 of chapter 13. On that day I will banish the names of the idols from the land, and they will be remembered no more, declares the Lord Almighty. And I will remove both the prophets and the spirit of impurity from the land. Speaking of false prophets. And if anyone still prophesies, his father and mother to whom he was born will say to him, you must die because you have told lies in the Lord's name. When he prophesies, his own parents will stab him. Hence the wounds. So first question, was Yeshua stabbed by his parents? First question. Okay, obviously not. On that day, every prophet will be ashamed of his prophetic vision. He will not put on a prophet's garment of hair in order to deceive. He will say, I am not a prophet, I am a farmer. The land has been my livelihood since my youth. Okay, next question. I don't want to get too deep here. I don't want to. I know that this is not a gathering of the world's finest biblical scholars and theologians. However, I'm going to risk this question. Was Jesus a farmer? No. No. You can ask a little child in a church Sunday school, was Jesus a farmer? No, he was a carpenter. His daddy was a carpenter. He was not a farmer. So not only was he not stabbed by his mother and father, but he wasn't a farmer. The thing that amazes me is we get accused of misinterpretation, and yet this allegedly is pointing to Jesus as a false prophet. Right. Listen, years ago, a woman came up to me. I was actually eating at a kosher Jewish deli on Long Island. And a woman came up to me, and she said, I believe that you are going to pastor a Messianic congregation in Florida. I said, oh, that's very sweet. I said, but actually, no, that's not in my heart. And she goes, no, it's going to happen. I said, actually, she's just very sweet, sincere woman. She said, I know it's going to happen. I said, actually, I'm not a pastor. I'm not called to be a pastor. And I'm not called to be in Florida. She's talking about a specific place. I said, no, I'm not called to pastor Messianic congregation in Florida. She goes, oh, but I know I saw that. She's kind of got this little vision for it. I said, well, a Messianic congregation there called me, and they want me to speak there one time, and I believe I will. She goes, that's it. That's what I saw. Okay, wonderful. So Jesus wasn't stabbed by his parents, and he wasn't a farmer, but it's got to be him. Thank you. If someone asks him, what are these wounds, Bein Yadayim? He'll answer, the wounds I was given at the house of my friends. Okay. So are Christian translations trying to obscure the fact that it says, what are these wounds in your hands? Are they trying to obscure